Limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, LGMD, affects the voluntary muscles of the pelvic and shoulder girdles. Over time, the person with LGMD loses muscle mass in the upper arms, shoulders, upper legs, and hips, restricting them to a wheelchair or scooter. These features can lead to a concave chest, which can cause problems with breathing, especially when sleeping.
Limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, or LGMD, has numerous causes which contribute to the many symptoms and intensities of the disease. There are 15 genes known at the moment that can cause LGMD. Genes in general are the specific code that all humans are made up from. And when certain genes are defected, in the most part not too much happens, but in some cases it will cause a range of severe disorders. In limb-girdle, when these genes are defected, the protein they code for will fail, and these proteins are the specific ones muscles would use. So when the gene is mutated, the protein won't form correctly, and finally the muscle will not work properly. Since these muscles are not working as they should, muscle degeneration then occurs, which form the actual signs of the disease. Mutated genes produce impaired muscle fibers, which are weak and progressively become weaker throughout this course of their life. The flawed genes also make people with LGMD more susceptible to injury because the muscle membrane that protects the muscle itself from shock is deficient due to missing or mutated genes. This muscle membrane might also be leaky in that it lets unwanted substances through, as well as improper functioning of membrane proteins that act as communication receptors from cell to cell. LGMD, or each of the 19 LGMD disorders, are classified by letters and numbers that indicate which gene is faulty, causing the symptoms associated with the disorder. Some physicians will analyze LGMD by the protein that is lacking.
This genetic disorder can be diagnosed anywhere from childhood to early adulthood. Both males and females are affected, and when the diagnosis is earlier, the disease tends to be faster acting. There are several ways to go about diagnosing LGMD. One way is to take a 3-generation pedigree to determine risk of offspring developing the disease if parents or grandparents are affected. It is necessary to also determine whether the muscle weakness is due to the nerve or muscle defects. A creatine kinase test, CK test, can be done to see if this enzyme is leaking from damaged muscle and would show that the muscles themselves are defected. Electromyography, which measures the activity of muscle cells, can be done to find the location of the weakness. Examination by a physician to classify pelvic girdle weakness and a muscle biopsy are helpful. Genetic testing is also a way to test for the disorder before it is physically noticeable. LGMD can be inherited as an autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive disorder. With dominant inheritance patterns, a person's parent must have the disorder to pass along a dominant gene, which will then show up in the offspring as LGMD. With recessive inheritance patterns, both parents might have a recessive gene and not even be affected by the disorder. But if their offspring inherit both the recessive genes, they will display symptoms of the disorder. There is also the chance of a person simply developing the mutation that causes LGMD, and once that person has the mutation, they have the ability to pass it on to their offspring.
DNA testing can be done to see which gene is mutated. The mutated gene will not be able to produce its designated proteins, and muscle activity will suffer. The 19 different forms of LGMD are classified by their defected or missing proteins.
There is no cure for LGMD. However, there are ways to prolong good muscle strength. Maintaining good health and well-balanced diet is a smart way to preserve strength and control weight. Moderate exercise such as swimming, water aerobics, and low-resistance work is important to keep the muscles active. Intense workouts could actually be detrimental to muscle mobility because the muscle cannot regenerate after lifting heavy weights. Individuals with LGMD should keep walking as long as they can and use scooters or wheelchairs for long distances.
What was it like having a grandfather with muscular dystrophy?
As a child, I didn't realize there was anything wrong with my grandpa. He seemed like every other grandparent, except he had neat scooters to ride on and a breathing machine that made him look like an astronaut when he slept. When I was old enough to understand, I found out what he had was limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. As I got older and his condition worsened, he needed more and more help with day-to-day activities.
What type of care did he need?
Well, transferring from his chair to his scooter got much harder, and eventually we had to use a Hoyer lift to get him from the family room to his bedroom. Taking care of him became a full-time job, and 2 people had to be with him constantly. He was blessed to have a large family with 5 kids who could take turns helping my grandma. It became routine, and we each had our own shifts. Sometimes it was a burden when life gets busy and you get a call saying Grandpa needs to get in the bathroom or get into his bedroom to take a nap, and you have to drop whatever you're doing. But the majority of the time, it was a family gathering where we could all talk about our day over dinner. We had the choice of putting him in a nursing home, but we felt he needed his family, so we scheduled shifts and had hospice come to his house for routine checkups.
How did your grandfather cope with having the disorder?
My grandpa was always a busy man, and he loved to go to the mall and out to eat, so the hardest part of this disorder was seeing him restricted to the family room and his bedroom. We made the best of it, though, and brought him meals from all his favorite restaurants, and made sure my grandma got to go out of the house and take a break from being a full-time caregiver. My grandfather was inspiration to all those around him, and showed everyone that you can do whatever you set your mind to. Nothing held him back, and he had a long, happy life with enduring love from his family.
Learning to live with a neuromuscular disease. On Monday, September 3rd, Labor Day, we here at News Channel 34 will be taking part in the annual telethon for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. In preparation for it, News Channel 34's Brooke Ritchie brings us the story of an Endicott man's struggle with one of the diseases that the MDA is searching for a cure.
If you make up your mind that you want to be like the rest and do things like everybody else does, you just got to get up and you got to do it, you know. And it's been a good way, I think, you know, until you have to lay down.
That's been David Cornelius's motto throughout his 60-year struggle with limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. One of the 43 neuromuscular diseases that the MDA covers, his disease is marked by weakness and muscle wasting.
My arms never really developed, you know, and getting this concave thing in my chest, and then the legs were still pretty good.
Up until about 7 years ago, when walking, even with a limp, became too difficult. But for more than 50 years, David proved that people with neuromuscular diseases can still live. He served in the Army, attended business school, and worked at IBM for 34 years.
If your mind is okay, you're okay, you know, and that it didn't hinder. I don't think it hindered at all.
But at age 74, living with muscular dystrophy is more difficult for David today. One of the effects of muscular dystrophy can be heart problems, and David suffers from congestive heart failure. So he uses this BiPAP machine every night, which releases his lungs by giving him oxygen.
Each year it gets worse, where he can't do as much. His walking ability, his breathing. Right now he's really, you know, at the, I don't know if he can get any worse. I guess he could, but he's really right where he needs help.
Not much longer, but it's going to be as long as I can manage.
With a wife of 43 years and family totaling 26, including great-grandchildren, he's surrounded by loved ones who want to help. And they can, since none of them has displayed signs of muscular dystrophy.
It never bothered any of us, just like he was perfect. Other people have seen him and knew, but, you know, after you live with someone that has muscular dystrophy, it's just like any other thing.
In Endicott, Brooke Ritchie, WIBT News Channel 34.